Okay, you done? You learned about Kamma before? Okay. We start the new Masechta Baba Kamma. You know what Baba means? Baba means a gate. A gate, like a doorway. Baba Kamma means the first. There's 30 chapters in Baba Kamma, Baba Mitzvah, Baba Basra, so it's divided into the first gate, the middle gate, and like Masechtas Kalim. There's also 30 chapters. And some versions of the Mishnah divided in Kalim, Baba Kamma of Kalim, Baba Mitzvah of Kalim. The Tosefta, it's done like that. Anyway, so it starts like this. We thank Hashem that we're able to learn every day. It's supposed to be learning. We should have the Beis Hamikdash. It says Abba V'Sn Zikin. There's 4 categories of damages. It would be clear if it would have said Mazikin, Abba V'Sn Mazikin, whatever. There's 4 categories. When we mean categories, what we're referring to? Sorry. Oh, you learned this? Oh, okay. What we're referring to is what it says in the Torah that a person is responsible for if it damages, and from that we'll be able to derive all other types of damages from these 4 categories. But it starts off like this: Hashar, the ox, which we'll have in the Gemara, what exactly that's referring to. It's either referring to an ox that tramples on things because when it's walking, it just tramples. Or I'm sorry?
Gore?
Or it's referring to goring. It's either referring to, could be referring to all 3. Okay. So it's an ox that's doing damage. Habar is a pit. Vahamava is also a machlekes. Mava could either be the way an animal eats, which means it enjoys, which is different than when it tramples, because that's it has enjoyment, it has benefits from it. Trample doesn't have benefit. What's wrong?
The guys have to wait for you. They don't know you're here.
Why?
I don't know why. I can see your car.
Oh, because it was.
I'm gonna go tell them. There's a bunch of guys downstairs waiting for you. That you're that they both made a room. Waiting downstairs. A bunch of guys downstairs.
What kind of guys?
They don't see your car.
Okay. So mava could either mean a person that does damage, or it could also mean the animal that eats. And vayhever means fire. So one thing that we have clear that there's no machlekes about is bar and hever. Bar is a pit. Shekayach. Bar is a pit and hever is fire. Shar and mava, that could either be different types of the animal doing damage, or it could mean a person doing damage. Or it's only an animal damaging this way or an animal damaging that way. Yeah. You have it. Yeah, we learned in the beginning. We learned that there's 4 types of damages, 4 categories of damages: the ox, the pit, and mava, which can mean a person or another type of animal eating, and hever, which means fire. The person starts a fire, causes damage. So, and the reason why we need categories is because we don't know what the person would be obligated to pay for if the Torah doesn't tell us exactly what he has to pay. So we have these categories, and from that comes out all the other laws. Oh, thank you. The ox is not like mava. So let's do it over here. Let's just say that when it damage with regel means that it tramples on something. That's different than mava. That's different than when it eats. because I could have thought that the trampling is something that's very common, and you should be obligated on that. But when it eats, maybe not. Maybe you would be exempt. I'm not sure why. But and then if it eats, maybe you would only be responsible for that because you got some benefit from it. But trampling, you don't have benefit from. Maybe you would be not responsible. That's one way of learning this. And whatever the case is, those have a living spirit in it. The two types of damages that come from the animal, they have a living spirit. Similar to fire, which doesn't have a living spirit in it. It's not alive. Okay, 1 second. Let me just move this. Now, the thing about the animals and about the fire is that they cause damage as they move around. They cause damage. It's different than a pit, which stays in its place and causes damage in its place. So each one of these, I could have thought maybe you're exempt if the Torah didn't tell me. So, but the common factor between all of these four types of damages is that they do cause damage. And you have an obligation to guard it, to make sure it doesn't damage. And the rule is that if it causes damage, the damager has to pay for the damage, the value of the damage, but it's with the best of his property, which is called idias, the Gemara calls it. Okay.
Why does it have to be with land and not in metal?
I'm not sure. It's a much more serious payment because you actually lose property, not like an item. You go get another one.
My animal went and ate out of your field, so how much did you lose? $10,000. Here's $10,000. Right, but I have to lose a quarter of my land.
Right. I think if you're going to pay with movable items, I think you can pay. It's just if you're going to pay with land, you have to pay with the best. Yeah, I think it says that on. Yeah.
You're probably right because it says here in Rashi, "Im roitzeli for
Yeah. Yoshev l'Rabbi Shavit Kesef. Suman.
I mean, it's probably obvious you can, but if you want to pay in land, you have to pay the best.
Yeah, the Gemara on Daf Zayin is going to say that you can pay other things as well. Okay, just 1 point in the Mishnah. Thank you. 1 point in the Mishnah is that it didn't really go in order. It could have said that Shor is not like Bar, and Shor and Bar are not like Maveh. It didn't do it like that. It said Shor is not like Maveh. It skipped Bar, and the reason for that is because it wanted to say that these move around. And if it would have said Shor and Bar, the ox in the pit, then I wouldn't have been able to say that these move around. Yeah. There's a Chassidish pshat in this Mishnah. You ever heard the Chassidish pshat?
No.
I saw it in the Sefer Teres Zeal. I think Rabbi Zeal Meislish was a Talmud of the Maggid. And I saw the Sefer in my in-laws' house. I don't have any of these svarim, but anyway, over there he says that the four Avis Nazikin are, well, he quotes from the Baal Shem Tov, that Shor is looking where you're not supposed to. That's the first thing. Bar is empty time. Maveh is overindulgence. And Hever is anger. That's what he quotes from the Baal Shem Tov. And then he says, this is not like this is not whatever. And he says, that he says in all the other damages, you still have the neshama there. When it comes to anger, the neshama leaves a person when he gets angry. And that's what the person says, it wasn't me, or something. Anyway, okay. We started off by saying, Arba Avis Nazikin, there's 4 categories of damages, but we call them Avis. Avis literally means fathers. Midiktani Avis, the fact that it says that there's categories, which means Avis, Mechlal Dika told us, obviously there's subcategories. If you have categories, then you have you have the details. Told the same kiyitzibem, I love kiyitzibem. What's going to be with those details? Are those details going to have the same law as the father categories or not? So we could look into other types of cases in the Torah where we have categories. So Gabi Shabbos Tanan.
It says over here that the thing that brings all these four categories together is that typically they cause damage, right? But not is just going to be used for productive purposes.
Yeah.
Valid.
Yeah. I'm sorry? Silk in a fire, right. Yeah, all of them can be used for productive purposes, but one of them possibly is a human, a mava, human that could be productive sometimes. But nevertheless,
It says here.
yeah, that's one interpretation which the Gemara is going to say. So, but the point is that you still have to protect it from causing damage. You know, it could have said a lawnmower or a car or something. They're productive and they also cause damage. You just have to treat them properly. But these are the categories, and from the categories we'll figure out what's going to be with the lawnmower, what's going to be with the car, and what's going to be with the, these are the categories. We'll get everything else.
How do you translate darkon?
That it's usual to.
Usual. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So Gabi Shabbos Tanan, we have another example of Avis. It says Shabbos, Avis, Malachas, Abayim, Chasarachas. On Shabbos, there's 40 categories of labor, 40 minus 1. How much is that? 39. Yeah, for some reason it says it like that. Avis, but it says that there's categories. Mechlaldika told us, obviously, there's subcategories. There's details. Until the same kiyitzibem, and that the details are exactly like the parent, right? What happens? So you can't prepare the soil to plow, and you can't water it either, or something. Or that could be helping it grow. That could go into different categories. Squeezing fruits or something. Heating. Well, heating can actually two different malachas. There's a malacha of baking, and then the malacha of kindling a fire. That's a different malacha. That's interesting, right? Starting the fire is one malacha, and then baking is another malacha. But under those categories, you could have toldas. So leishna, but and the toldas are the same. Toldas means the offspring. Leishna av chatas, leishna tolda chatas. If someone violates one of the laws of Shabbos by mistake, he has to bring a korban. So whether he violates a av malacha or if he violates a tolda, both have to bring a korban chatas. Leishna av skill, leishna tolda skill. If he does it with warning, if they warn him, do not take the onions out of your vegetable salad. If not, there's going to be skila, and he does it, he could get the death penalty if he's warning. It's a strange example, but it's bitter, and it's yeah.
Why are you going now?
You have to eat the tomatoes out of and leave the onions, right? Okay. So Ma'yika bein av l'tolda. What's the difference between an av and a tolda? Why is one called av and one called a tolda? Well, nafkamina dilu avish te'avis b'adei adadi. If there's a person does two avis together, he plows and he plants, right? Inamish te toldas b'adei adadi, or he does pruning could be a tolda of planting, I think, because it makes it grow better or something. He does two toldas. Mechayev akol chada b'chada. He's chayev on each and every one. But if you do planting and pruning, which is an av malacha with a tolda, you'll only be chayev one. On which one? It's two different malachas, but it's under the same category, right?
Malacha is not its own category.
Oh. Oh, you're talking about like when we called it stackable, when you have one sin on top of another sin, the second one doesn't count. over here, I think it's referring to not that he didn't violate that sin. I think what it means is that it goes under one atonement because it's considered one forgetting. So if someone forgets about Helamechad, if someone forgets about Shabbos, so forgets about Shabbos and he violates all 39 malachas. I don't know how he does that, but he does all 39. He forgot it was Shabbos. He has to bring a max 39 karbanos. That's the maximum. Because even if he did told us, those would still get the atonement of the malacha that he did, of the Av malacha. A max of 39 in one forgetting. Yeah. He forgot that it was Shabbos. He did many malachas. But the max is 39. That's why we have the number, the Gemara says. Why do you have a number? To tell you that that's the max. So
the example you gave though, that said was about using fire for baking, and the other was just to kindle.
Right. Those would be two separate malachas.
Two separate
two
carbons,
right? Yeah. Can't get stoned
Or
twice.
But there are two different categories.
Those are two different categories. Those are number 30 something and number 11. Yeah.
But you're saying that was it planting and
pruning? I think the Gemara says is the same malach. The malach is to plant, and then pruning is a subcategory of planting.
Oh.
Yeah. So it is another sin, but when it comes to the punishment, you only have to do one carbon. You only have to do one carbon. Yeah. So now we're seeing why it's called an Av and a Tolda, right? Why is it called an Av and a Tolda? Because you only have to do. They're exactly the same, right? Exactly the same. If someone violates a Tolda, he brings a Chatas. Someone violates Av, he brings a Chatas. Exactly. So why is one an Av and one a Tolda? Well, we see that it's types of categories, because if you do an Av and it's Tolda, you only chayav one. So that's the significance of it. Rashi says you chayav on the Av malacha, not on the Tolda. I guess that's logical, although I don't have any proof of that, but that seems logical.
Or the person had crime, they'll try to punish him for that major crime, and then they could nonsense. They don't really care about it.
Oh, really? Okay. Is that how it works in secular court?
I don't know.
Yeah.
If there's a major crime and a minor crime, if someone goes into a house and murders and breaks the window while he's so that he doesn't have to pay for the window.
They don't care about that.
No, the window would be civil, a bit different.
It would go under a different court.
Different court.
He's gonna be the rest of his life in prison. Not getting paid for it.
So the Gemara says
it comes out in the punishment.
it does come out.
In the punishment. I mean, in our halakha, if a Jewish halakha, if somebody murders somebody, he doesn't pay. He isn't punished for the murder and have to pay for the shirt.
Right. Because of kamle b'travmine.
But in our law, in a halakha, in civil law, yeah, you can have to pay for the shirt too.
Interesting. Okay. Rabbi Eliezer, the Mechayev Atolda b'makamav. Rabbi Eliezer is stricter about this. He says if someone does a malacha, a tolda, and he also does the av, so he has to bring two karbanos. According to Rabbi Eliezer, what's the reason for the number in the Mishnah? Because you can have much more than 39. Well, my karli av and my karli tolda. Why is one called an av, one called a tolda? It's the same, exactly the same. The Gemara says, "Hachtav Mishkan chashiva karli av." It called what was important in the Mishkan. It's called the Av. Whatever. Where do we get the laws of Shabbos from? Well, it says you can't do work on Shabbos, but how do we know what's considered work? So the work that was done in the Mishkan in preparation for the preparing for the tabernacle to set it up, all of that's called a malacha. So anything that was an important work there is a Av. Haftalayav Mishkan Chashiva Karli told an Aisha singled out. That's right. That's a machlekes. For what purpose it was singled out? Well, if it wasn't important, then it's called a tolda. So it's not really going to be a halachic difference. It's really just like what the source is. According to Rebbe Lezer, that's what made the difference. No, there's different gersayos over here in this Gemara, but it's fine as it is. Okay, so we have Aves by Nezikin, Aves Nezikin. We have Aves by Shabbos, and next Aves is Gabi Tumas Tanan. You have Aves by Tumah as well, by impurity. It says, it was taught in the Mishnah, Aves Tumah, the fathers of impurity are Hasheret, a creeping creature, Shechvazera, is the seed that comes from a man, and Tami Mace, and a corpse. Told the same Lapki Yitzibem. But over there, the Toldos are very different than the Av. Very different. Lilo Av, if it's talking about an Av, now an Av would be someone that touched the corpse. The corpse itself is called Avi Avais Hatama. The Av is someone that touched the corpse. Or a Sheretz is an Av. So the person that touched the corpse and the Sheretz are the same category. But if a person that touched the corpse or a Sheretz, that could be Matami, Adam Mekalim. They could touch another person, they could touch vessels, and that will become impure. Vila told us, but that person that got touched, you can only contaminate food. Now we're already dealing with it's called the Vlad Hatama, a Rishon Sheni. So it can only be, it's an offspring. So in other words, the father categories are very different than the told us. So Hachamai, what's going to be by us? So we have Shabbos, where it's the same. We have Tumah, where it's different. And the question is, what is by Nazikin? Damages. The damages, the offspring of damages, the same thing, where you're going to have to pay the same amount for that. Right? Talking about someone damaging with the thing, the spinner that he uses to cut the grass. It's like the string. What's it called? Weed eater. A weed eater. He's going out to weed eater and it shoots a pebble onto someone's window. Is that going to be till they say? I don't know which category it goes on there, but Kayetzibem, is it going to be the same thing or not? So Hachamai, what's going to be by us? Amar Rav Papa. Rav Papa says Yeshmem Ketzbem, Yeshmem Lav Ketzbem. A great answer. Some yes and some no. Some yes and some no. Yeah, Rav Papa is usually the one that says he satisfies everyone. He says Mara Marchada V'Lei Pligi. They're not really arguing. Each one's talking about a different case. Anyway, here he said we have both. We're not going to get the answer to Rav Papa until we turn the page on Daf Gimel. Hopefully we'll get to it today. All right, but it's going to take us an entire 1, 2, 3 columns to get what Rav Papa means. All right. So it's good we learn on Sunday. We do on Shabbos. We won't even see we'd forget by tomorrow what Rav Papa even said. Today we'll have it hopefully at the end. Tana Rabbanan.
Fun fact, it looks like Rav Papa made a business date here.
Oh yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah. I think we had that somewhere. I don't remember the detail. Tana Rabban was taught in a brisa. Gimel Avis Nemer Bashar. There's 3 categories regarding an ox itself. Hakeren, Hashen, Varegel. Keren is when the animal gores with its horns. Shein is when it eats with its mouth, and regel is when it tramples. So each of these are very different types of. You see, Keren is when it actually wants to cause damage. It knows what it's doing. It puts its head down, and with its horns, it rams into something. It knows what it's doing. It's trying to do damage. It wants to make a scene. Keren is the horn. It goes with its horns, and yeah. And we're gonna put under Keren. We're gonna put every time the animal intends to do damage, it's going to be called Keren, because that's the category where it's going to be a subcategory. Any intention to do damage. Shein is when it enjoys what it's doing. It's eating it and it gets enjoyment. There could be other types of enjoyment. It could be it wants to rub its back on your clothing, because whatever. And that's it's getting enjoyment because it's whatever the fleas. I don't know what it.
Shane is teeth, so
Shane means
biting.
teeth. It means biting. It means eating. But the main category we're going to talk about is that it's pleasure. And then regel is just its regular walking around, trampling. Yeah, absent-minded sort of. Yeah, as it's walking.
How does this to be?
So,
I'm saying that these are three are short.
Subcategories.
These are related to.
according to one opinion, they all go under shore. According to one opinion, according to one opinion, shor is regel and mava is shane. According to another opinion, shor is keren shane v'regel, and mava is adam amazik. Yeah. So I don't know if this is telling me what the pshat in the Mishnah is. This is its own brisa. This brisa says that there's three types of damages that involve an ox: keren, shane, and regel. Okay. Keren minolan. What we're looking for here, the reason why we're going through this now, is we're trying to figure out which told us are not like the others and which are yes like the others. Because Rav Papa said some yes, some no. Now we have to go through them and see what's happening. Keren minolan. How do we know that there's a damage called keren, where it's intentionally gores? The Tanur Rabbanu was taught in the Brisa, Kiyigach. It says when an ox gores, what's the full pasuk? It says Kiyigach sharis ish. Oh yes, isha. This is talking about when an ox gores a man. It uses the word Kiyigach. An ox gores a man or a woman. So when we learn Ein Nagicha LeBekeren, when it says the word Nagach, we know it's referring to with a horn. Shnemar Vayasle Tzidkia ben Kanana. Karni Barzel, Vayomer, Kayamar Hashem Be'ela Tanaga Chasiram. The whole theatrics that one of the prophets does. It was a false prophet, but I think Achav wanted to go to battle, and he asks his prophets, "Is he going to win?" He was together with Yehoshaphat, I think, and the prophets tell him, "Yeah, you're going to win." One of them even takes out these horns. And he says, with these horns, you're gonna win Aram. You know, like the prophets would take out like these instruments and shows props. So anyway, he has these props. He says he makes these horns out of iron. He says, with these, we're gonna gore Aram. And then the other prophet says, you're gonna lose. The true prophet says, I think it was Elisha. I think right. I think it was Elisha. He said, you're gonna lose. And he tells Yehoshaphat will only go to battle if the prophet says that they're gonna that they should go, that they're gonna win. So he says this prophet always speaks bad about me. You know, I told you he doesn't like me. Anyway, okay. So there was one was real and one was not. Yeah. So. Yeah, I saw somewhere that the false prophets not necessarily were not necessarily scoundrels. They weren't like just total fake like this. They actually had visions. They just weren't correct. It wasn't like like
So they didn't interpret it.
and that's why in one of these prophecies they said one of them says that how did God look when he appeared to you? Did he look? You know, in other words, there was a. It depends on if can you trust that vision, you know. Whatever the case is, right?
How did she look?
How
did she look?
Is that what happened? Oh,
the feminists say, how did she look?
Right.
How did they look?
The 5 books of Miriam.
That's it.
In another verse that says, you see, it uses the word keren, which means the horns, and it uses the word yinagach, that it will gore. It says this is referring to Yosef, right? The horns of a re'im are his horns, and with them he will gore the nations. Okay, my vaimer. Why do I need a second pasuk to teach me that horns? That yigach means horns. It says and maybe you can say that you can't learn Torah from the prophets. You can only learn Torah from the 5 books, right? It says Tashema b'char hadalai. So therefore, we have to have the pasuk from V'zaysa Bracha. That we waited till the end to get it, but we got it. We got it in there, and that it says that the horns is the word naga.
Would that be a true statement today that Rabbanim don't learn halakha from the Nach?
I think there's actually a machlokes. So what we're saying is maybe this opinion would be following that source that says that you don't learn from the Nevi'im, and so therefore we had to bring another pasuk according to that opinion.
Thanks. Since the time of the Gemara, is
Yeah.
it correct that Rabbanim don't learn from the Nach?
I'm not sure. I think we have examples of. I don't know. We had recently. We had in Yecheskel. We had that thing with the Kayanim. But I don't know. It could be we have all of those sources from other places.
That's what Moshe was saying at the end of the day. Torah
Right.
should all fit. Thing is that
Right.
you have
That's not-
Hashem.
But we've quoted Sukkim and Tanakh that teach us different halachas here and there. I think it would be following that other opinion that says that you can learn from Nevi'im. Calls it Divrei Kabbalah. Why are the Nevi'im called Kabbalah? I guess because they received. Why is Kabbalah called Kabbalah? You think it's like Kabbalah,
At the end of the day, it's from the Nevi'im and not well.
right?
We should keep it.
Right.
Traditions.
Uh-huh. Why are the prophets called Kabbalah?
They were right up there on top,
Uh-huh. Okay.
I guess. Why you shame, Karen? You said, you want to check it. We can answer any question.
I think the prophets spoke to God, and God spoke to them. So they gave us that tradition, whatever the Kabbalistic tradition is, must be from those interactions. Since he looked like white, like those different things must be from those prophets.
Now, I read recently that Rabbanim in the ages will learn from Nevi'im, but not Kesuvim.
Oh.
I didn't understand that, but maybe it's because of what you just said, that Nevi'im are also called Kabbalim, so they have a tradition of having received it, whereas Kesuvim really is new.
Uh-huh. I wonder if that's accurate. I wonder if that. Till and Mishlei, we don't have any things that we learn from. What about Esther? We have some laws that we follow from Esther.
It's true.
I don't know.
And these things that we learn from the prophet, do they have their source in the Torah?
Hopefully. Yeah, but it could be details that we're getting from the prophets. Right. Okay. So the Gemara says, "V'hai melefu." Over here, are you really learning? Are you really learning a halacha out of the prophets? You're not learning a halacha out of the prophets. You're just translating a word. You can find translations of words from the prophets. What translation? The negicha b'karno. That when it uses the word negicha, it's referring to goring with the horn. So why do we need another verse? It's not a halacha. You're learning how to translate. It's just a translation. What might you have said? I could have thought that there's a rule when it comes to Karen, an animal that gores on purpose with intention to cause damage. If it's its first time doing it, it's called a tam. Tame. It's tame. Tam. Tame. If it's if it's its third time doing it, it's called a muad. And there's a difference in halacha. Tam only pays half the damages. If it's the first 3 times, it has like a little. We give them off. It doesn't. First 2 times. It's a discussion if it's the first 2 or first 3. But so I could have thought if I would have used the verse from Tzidkiah ben Kanan of the Karni Barzel, that from the prophets, if I would have taken that verse, I would have thought that when do I say there's a difference between a tam and a muad by those 2 categories? That's hanimila betlusha. That's with horns that were attached to the animal. iron horns that were put onto the animal. However, but horns that are attached by birth to the animal, I could have thought that maybe it's always a muad. When do we have the halacha? We only have to pay half when you have that strange added horn that you put on. It's so odd that someone should do that. We say, okay, this is so uncommon. We don't have to make them pay the full price. We're not concerned about this. But if a regular horn causes damage, maybe we would say that it's more common, and you should have to pay the full price even the first time. So Tashma B'char Sharei Hadalei that negicha applies not only to horns that were added onto the animal, but the natural horns that the animal grows also would have the same laws of negicha.
New death is for warning.
Muad.
Well,
It
but
would mean
that's,
4 warrants, right? Means the third time. Kula muadasi, it's always forewarned, which means that it's already, it's as if it did it 3 times already, and it's been warned. Could have thought that only the added on ones have a difference between the first 2 times. So it comes along the second pasuk to tell me that it's even natural horns also have a difference between the first 2 times and after that. So we now know what Keren is. Now we have to figure out Tolda the Keren Mahi. What is an offspring of Keren? We said there's 3 others with the shar. One of them was Keren. We know what Keren is. Of course, with the horn, what's an offshoot of that? Subcategory Negifa is if it pushes an animal with its body and it moves its body to like bang something. That would be an offshoot. Neshicha is if it bites. Revitza is if it sits down on something like it's what is it?
And breaks.
And breaks something when it does that. Ubita is when it kicks. Gemara says, "Ma'ishna negicha dekar leyav d'ksiv ki yigach negifa nami d'ksiv ki yigaf." Why are you telling me that when it gores with its horns, it's considered an av? When it breaks something with its body, it moves its body, it's considered a tolda. But in the Torah itself, I have the word ki yigaf, which means that it breaks with its body, at least according to the way we're translating it now. So why is that considered a tolda? The Gemara says, "Hai negifa negichahi." When it says the word ki yigaf, that's actually referring to goring with the horns, not breaking with the body. The Tanya was taught in a brayso, pasach benegicha v'sayim benegicha. One of the siyim benegicha. The verse starts with negifa. It says ki yigaf. What's the pasuk? Yeah, do you have the verses over there? Says ki yigaf shar ish shari ayo, and what does it finish with? Oh, it says if it's known that it was a shar naga. Okay, when it gores another animal, it says ki yigaf shar ish shari ayo. Yeah. And then at the end it says, and if it's known that it did it 3 times. But it says, when at the end of the pasuk it says yigach. So it starts with yigaf and it finishes with yigach. So Laimalach is coming to tell you, zui negicha. It's coming to tell you that it's actually talking about goring, even though it used the word negifa.
It says the subcategory.
Yeah, but over here we're saying that it's actually the main category. So the word when we use the word negifa, we're referring to a subcategory. When the pasuk used the word negifa, it's referring to the main category of goring with the horns. It says Ma'ishna gabi adam d'ksiv ki yigach, Ma'ishna gabi behema d'ksiv ki yigaf. So why did it once use ki yigach and once use ki yigaf? When an ox gores a man, it says ki yigach. When it will gore. When it gores an animal, it says ki yigaf. When an ox gores another animal, its friend. Used to be its friend. So the Gemara says, Adam dislay mazla ksiv ki yigach. A man that has mazel. Now, is that the ingenuity? Intelligence? Rashi says this first pshat is that it has intelligence to protect itself, like to move aside. So over there it says ki yigach. That means like it's really random because even though the person has intelligence to move aside, but he still got him. The Hamad Leslie Mazla, but an animal that doesn't have that ingenuity, to move aside or whatever. Ksiv ki yigaf, over there it says ki yigaf.
This is using the Berush of Maslos, what comes man like that. So other places, but here would be, the man says, okay, here I am. All right, this is time. Where do I go?
So
You
what?
know?
No, so what was that abbreviation?
Mazal,
Is
normally, one of the interpretations means what comes man like that. If you're in the right place at the right time, you know it, you're lucky. You know, but I could see it meaning that's the intelligent move. Run,
Interesting.
hide, or shoot. If somebody comes in so late, don't make that.
Somebody called
happen.
spring forward, call back. I
Or
was
my
confused.
coffee will accidentally go off.
Oh, goodness, that was on tape.
On tape.
DSA.
NDA. What's that stand for?
Non-disclosure agreement.
Right, you can't say that.
so Milsa Gavorcha Kamashma is coming to teach us the halacha on the side. The mud ladam avi mud lebehema, mud lebehema le'avi mud ladam. Okay, this is an interesting point. That if an ox gores a man 3 times, so and then it gores an animal, it has to pay full price, even though it wasn't a mud for an animal; it was only mud for a man. The problem is if it gored a man, if it killed a man even once, the ox would be put to death. But somehow it managed to get away with this 3 times, and then it gores an animal, so we say it's a mud. But if it gores an animal 3 times, and then it gores a man, we don't say that it was a mud for the man, and it would only have to pay half price. Yeah, goring animals doesn't mean that it gores people, but goring people means that it will also gore animals. For it to be a mud for a person, yeah.
And I thought we just said, don't go animals, they push.
No, but the Gemara says that when it says ki yigaf, it really means yigach. And why did it switch it? It's coming to tell me that the real goring, where it becomes a mud for everything, is the yigach. But the yigaf doesn't mean that it's a mud for the. It switched it to teach me that. Okay. Neshicha. We're up to the second tolda of Keren. The first one was pushing with its body. Now the biting. Gemara says tolda the sheni. That's not a tolda of Keren. That's not an offshoot of Keren. That's shane. That's eating. Biting is like eating. It says loy sheni shenala azeka ainan ala azeka. When it's a tolda of shane, that's because it's enjoying the taste of it. Over here, it's just trying to crack it. You know, this is trying to break something, right?
Wonder if that's what
Okay. So Ravitzo Bita, what about those sitting down and kicking? Told the regularly. That's an offshoot of the foot of the regal. It's not Karen. It says loy. It is a told of Karen. Regal has a kamatzi, honey, and is a kamatzi. Regal is very common for it to happen, but this is not so common. This is like an abnormal behavior for an animal. So it goes under the category of Karen, which only has to pay half price for the first 3 times. Ella told us, hey, what's going on over here? If all the told us of Karen are like Karen, so what did Rav Papa mean that said some are not the same as the Av? Rav Papa said, some told us are like the Av, some told us are not like the Av. So far, all the told us are exactly like the Av. Ile Mahani, if it's talking about the Karen, Maishna Karen, the Kavanas Lahazik, Maincha, Shmirasan Lachani Nami, Kavanas Lahazik, Maincha, Shmirasan Alacha. This is Kavanas Lahazik, it's intentional damage, and it's your money. The reason why we have to pay when an animal gores is because it's your property. It's your property that caused damage. And you have an obligation to guard it. So anything that goes under those categories, even if it's a tolda, should have the same halacha. Ela tolda the Karen ke Karen. Rather, over here we have the categories that are the same like the others. What was Rav Papa referring to when he says it's not the same? That's referring to Shane and Regal, eating and trampling. Shane v'Regal hechiksivi. Where does it say Shane and Regal in the Torah? So we go through the sources. It says the Tanya was taught in a brisa v'shilach zeh Regal. Quotes the pasuk. Someone will send his animal into another property. It's referring to trample. Now the rule with Regal trampling is not if it's in a public area. If an animal steps on your backpack, not yours, but it's a backpack in the public area, it doesn't have to pay. It's only if it tramples it in the property of Shishanizik, in the property of the if the animal goes into someone else's property and tramples there, then it has to pay. But if it has the right to be there, and you had your things on the floor, then that's your fault, it's not the animal's fault.
But if you're lying on the floor with the backpack, no, it just hits the backpack.
So,
It's
but it's
considered it was on the
if
floor or it's still attached to you when you were lying down.
if it's in the public area, then it has the right to be there. It's talking about only when it goes into a private area where it's not supposed to be. So, B'shilach zeh regel, he sends it in to, this is referring to trampling. We even have a verse that supports this. It says, Mashalchi regel asher v'chamar, the sending of the trampling, or the ox or the donkey. Now we have ubir. Ubir means it consumes. Zuashain, this is referring to eating.
It's pleasure.
Pleasure. We even have a source for this. Kasher yivar hagal alatumai, as the hagal probably means the tooth, according to one interpretation. As the tooth destroys until the end, until it's totally destroyed. I think it means it pulls the stalks out of the ground. Some of the animals, they don't actually chew it they don't bite the grass off they rip the whole thing out from the roots, right?
Because I was thinking like a horse kicks, a dog bites, and an ox scores. So in that case, all these would be part of trampling.
Yeah.
It's just a different way of.
Right.
And a scorned woman sues. Yes, I know.
So is this saying that Ba'ar is a tolda of Shane?
It's the friends you keep.
Tell me again.
I have a question as to what the Gemara is saying. Is it saying that Havar is a tolda of Shane?
No, the pasuk doesn't actually say Shane. The pasuk, the real words of the pasuk are only if it gores or it pushes, which we translate also as goring, and then it says if it consumes in another field, and it says he sent his animal. So we're saying that consuming.
You're translating var here as consuming, not as fire.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly. And it says Vishilach es be'irai, and he sends his animal. So he says Ubiyar is talking about the consumption, and Vishilach is referring to the trampling. And now we have a source that each one that word is used in the context of either consuming or trampling. Okay, Amar Mar, the Gemara goes back to discuss the sources for this. It says V'shilach zeh quote a verse that tells me that trampling is associated with V'shilach. Time of the Kasav Rachmana Mishalchi Regel Asher V'chamar. The only reason why we know this is the pasuk in Yeshaya is because we have Rachmana the Eibishter said that Mishalchi Regel. If not for that, the Maimukas, what would you have thought V'shilach means? Ikaren, if you thought it would be referring to goring with the horns. Ksiv, I have a pasuk for that. Ishane, maybe it's talking about Shane. It says Ksiv, I have a pasuk for that as well. I have a beer. So it's necessary to say Mishalchi Regel Asher V'chamar. Why? I could have thought that I have two types of shame, two types of consumption. One is Hadam Machal Yakana, Hadlay Machal Yakana. One type of consumption is when it destroys it from its roots. It destroys the principle. It means it will never grow back. Another one is when it will grow back. I need both types of damages. Kamash Malan, so therefore it tells me that I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about regel. It says regel. If that's the case, that it's talking about regel trampling, then how do you know that a person has to pay for damages that are caused where it will grow back? That pasuk could have been teaching it to you. Now you used it for regel. So it says dumya de regel. It's the same thing like regel, like trampling. Ma regulation of machal yakana relation of machal yakana, just like trampling. We don't make a distinction between is it going to be grow back or will it not grow back. We didn't care. Whatever it is, you trampled it. You have to pay for the damages. We learn one from the other. That by Shane as well, by eating, it doesn't make a difference if it ripped it out of the ground and it will never grow back, or it just ate the fruits right off it and it's still going to return to grow back. Okay. Same payment. Maybe less of a damage, but he still has to pay exactly the same for whatever the damage is. Amar Mar, Master taught Ubir zu Shane that when it says it will consume, that's referring to the tooth. It means eating. As the tooth, gull over here is referring to the tooth. Rashi says sometimes it's revealed, sometimes it's gull means that it's revealed. The other pshat Rashi brings is gull is like manure. That whatever it eats becomes manure. So two interpretations. So the Gemara says, "Time of the kasav rachmana kashivar gal atuma." I wouldn't have known that a beer means consumption unless I had that pasuk. Here's the pasuk from in Malachim Aleph. If not for that pasuk, what would we assume a beer meant? Karen ksiv. If you wanted to say it was referring to Karen, we have a pasuk for Karen. Tiyigach or tiyigach. Regel. If it's talking about regel, I have a pasuk for that as well. Ksiv says v'shilach. So it's necessary to say this pasuk to teach me that a beer is referring to Shane. I could have thought that both of them are referring to regel, which means trampling. Could have thought that one of them is when the animal went on its own. The other one was when the owner actually sent it in on purpose. Now it's not Karen, because Karen is when the animal is on purpose. Here, the owner just opened the latch and let the animal in, right? So Kamash Malan, it comes to tell me that it's not referring to that; it's referring to Shane. So Hashtaduki Shane Regel doesn't mail minolan. How do I know that the person is obligated if the animal went on its own? The owner didn't actually open the latch for him to go in. We say Dumya de Shane, similar to Shane. Ma Shane Leishna Shalach Shluchi Leishna doesn't lemela. When it comes to eating the other person's property, we never made a difference between if the owner opened the latch for him to go in or if it jumped over the fence and went in on its own. So Afrega Leishna Shalach Shluchi Leishna doesn't lemela. We don't make a difference by trampling as well if the owner helped it along or if it went on its own. The Gemara says, "Let the pasuk say v'shilach." He sent it, and then I don't need a beer. The mashma regel mashma shein, because that would imply both trampling and eating. Why? Regel mashma regel the verse clearly we have that. That was the verse we said before. That the context of v'shilach was referring to trampling. And mashma shein the ksiv shein behemes shalach pam. The tooth of the animals, I will send in them. We have a verse that says "V'shilach" by Shane. So it says "Ilav kro yisera." If not for the extra pasuk of Uviyar, havamina oihai oihai. I could have thought that it only meant one or the other. Oiregel tezekamatze. I could have thought maybe it's only referring to trampling because that's very common. That's what the animals do all day, is trample. Oishain di'eshanal azekar. I could have thought it's only referring to benefit that it gets when the animal gets benefit when it eats. So the Gemara says, "Michti shkulinheim, the avishneim." If it's equal, then I would learn both of them. The haiminayim afkas. Which one are you going to say doesn't apply? Both of them are reason to make the person obligated. It says yitzchach. It's necessary to say the word ubiyah. I could have thought that only if he sends it in on purpose, the owner lets it go into the other person's property, and that's when it causes damage. That's when it will be obligated. But if it goes on its own, I could have thought that not, because the word that I'm getting those damages from is the word b'shilach, where he sends it. Kamash Malan, Uvir tells me that even if it goes on its own, the person's still obligated. Okay. No, they always pay 100% by both of these, by trampling and by consuming. They always pay 100% from the beginning. It's called muad mitchilasan, because this is something that they always do. So it's not like, oh, I was surprised that this happened. They never did that before. What do you mean? It always walks, it always eats, right? Yeah, when a dog bites, the owner always says, "I can't believe it. It's the first time. I never did that before." Right? And then
If you have a big German Shepherd.
and I think the people are
Who has one of
surprised,
those?
of
No one
course,
has that.
because if it did, you would have killed it. But
Until it bites.
See, that's what he's saying.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
yeah.
what I say. They never.
my wife told me she was in the store, and behind her was a dog, and the person standing also behind her said, "Oh, what a cute dog!" He put its hand out, and the dog bit his hand. It was blood, like it was going like this. It was blood. People from the store came. They didn't care much about they just wanted to clean up the blood from the floor. But anyway, he said, "Oh, the guy was like saying I should have known better not to do that to a dog or something." I don't know exactly what yes, but no.
Yeah,
First
if
time,
you
never
do
happened.
one that you put your hand out, but not like to grab. If the dog then wants to come and lick it, that's fine.
Oh.
But you don't like go to grab the dog with the pet because the dog sees.
Hand
something
coming at it.
It's good advice. Wow.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Wow.
You know, if you're,
Usually say, "Can I pet your dog?" I've had that happen a lot of times. So if you have a dog, you know you're just gonna lick them. Stop taking pictures.
I'm sorry.
When I'll send you a picture of my dog. You
Trying
want
to
a
get
picture
your
of my
dog a
dog?
lesson to us. Video.
The AWG, I'll send you a picture.
Sorry, Rav Naftali.
I was just gonna say, if you read this Mishnah in conjunction with the Mishnahs at the beginning of Sanhedrin, you would resolve the question of what's hamava, whether it refers to a person or an animal, because of the phrase darkon, usual, because there in those Mishnahs it makes very clear that it's not usual for a human to hurt another human.
Oh,
Rumors.
oh.
You understand? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but
Now back to
it's very possible that it's not referring to a human hurting another human. Could be a human breaking or staining someone's clothing, or
Damage to
that's-
something else. Oh, okay.
it doesn't have to be a fight.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah, could be tripping and whatever, breaking something. Okay, we're holding by Tolda de Shane. So basically, all of told us of Karen we know are like Karen so far. Regel we just figured out what it is, and Shane we just figured out at least the sources what they are. Now let's go to the Toldas. Toldas de Shane Mai. What is the Tolda of Shane of eating? It rubs itself against the wall for pleasure. Animals like to rub their backs. So it's rubbing against the wall. What happened? The wall collapsed.
That's not a Molina built wall, right? You built that wall.
His wolf.
Also, no.
It's on that side.
Tin for Paris Lanasa damaged fruits with its dirty fruits for its enjoyment. How did it dirty the fruits for its enjoyment? Do you have a comment in there? What does it say? Is it like it relieved itself in there and into the fruits, or does it mean it rubbed itself in the fruits? It doesn't matter, but I'm just curious what how they're explaining it. Rashi says shenisgalgala alayim, it rolled in it. Yeah, but it said it enjoyed it
For pleasure.
It enjoyed it. What is that?
The Rebbe had the door in Russia because it wasn't safe. So they repeat. It says here, somebody was walking in the streets with a door. This is here, the Crown Heads, I think. I send it out. This story says, and the door stopped in front of the Rebbe, and he says, amazed. He turned to the Rebbe and asked, "How is it that you're not afraid of the door?" The Rebbe smiled to him and replied, "When I was your age, I had an even bigger dog than this." And it goes on to explain that in Russia, for safety, they had a dog. So now you know why my daughter has a giant German
Okay.
Shepherd.
That about the dog.
Number 22 says she rolled upon the fruits as animals will sometimes do to frolic or to scratch their hides and thereby ruin the fruits. Okay, excellent.
By the way, the comment also says, I've been reliably informed that the Rebbe had a German Shepherd dog at his house in Crown Heights. I've heard this.
Yeah.
We have one more interpretation here that it's cooling off.
What is that? Oh, to cool off. Interesting. Where's that in the Quran?
Tosfot Rabbi Shimshon of Saints in the Quran, yeah.
It's called the Rash Mishans. That's what it's called. So what do we have here? What would be different? Shane, when it eats, that it has enjoyment, and it has enjoyment as it damages, right? It eats and there's damage to the owner, and it's the person's money, which means that the animal belongs to someone. It's his property. You should have guarded it. So haninami this also, it's your property, and getting enjoyment, and you have to protect the other person from that. Yeah, the reason why we learn these things, and like for children, we learn Baba Kamma, Baba Metzia, is this. It's coming. We try to tell the children that the more items that you get, the more responsibility you have to. You get another thing, okay, now you have to guard it. It shouldn't cause damage. Then it's not just like you just keep amassing things and then like there's no problem. Give me this, give me that.
Dog, I want this,
Yeah.
that.
Everything has a responsibility that comes along with it.
Chose kids.
Oh, it soiled itself. Ella told of the Shane Kishane, so probably told us of Shane, the offshoots of Shane are going to have the same law. Kamma Papa told of the regal, so probably Rav Papa was referring to trampling, where over there it's not going to be the same. In other words, we're looking for the one item that's going to be different. It's good? Yeah? Told of the regal Maihi. What would be the offspring of regal? What is it? It says, now, let's say while it's walking, it causes damage. It doesn't realize its size, and it bangs things over. The Saira derech maybe something gets caught in its hair while it's walking. The shlifshela, or maybe the tail, right? Shlifshela is it's like it's a shlif, a saddle. Bepumbia shebepia.
It's the schlafrug.
What is it?
The
schlafkapel?
Schlafrug of the.
Can regal be applied to a person as well?
It's different. It's different.
We have to speak to
Yes, it's going to have the same halacha. If it has a muzzle in its mouth, zug shebet savara, or something over its neck. Well, how does it translate these things? A bell over its neck. If those things cause damage, so there's going to be just like regal. So the Gemara says, "Ma'ishna regal there's ekamatzim meinchash mirasan alecha haninami is ekamatzim meinchash mirasan alecha." Allah told the regal regal. This is exactly like regal. All the offshoots of regal are exactly the same. It's your money. It means your property. It's common for it to cause damage. You're supposed to be protecting other people from this happening, so you have to pay for it. So why should it be any different? Rav Papa told her the bar. Rav Papa was probably talking about bar. That's where it's going to be different. Told her the bar in my neo. What is it? Told her an offspring, an offshoot of bar. Ilay ma'av yod told the test. Talking about if someone digs a pit 10 cubits, not cubits, 10 handbreadths deep, about 40 inches deep. So that would be yud. That would be 10 tfachim. And what would be a tolda? Would be 9 tfachim. Would be 36 inches deep. So the Gemara says, 1 second. In the Torah, it doesn't say 10 tfachim or yud tfachim, test tfachim or yud tfachim. The Gemara says, Holy kasha, that's not a problem. It says, Ramesi alai. It says that the owner of the pit keeps the corpse. And what does that mean? That he pays the difference, that he gives him the full amount.
Like insurance companies, like if the car's totaled,
they keep the car.
The car, you can't get the car and the full payment.
Right. And the rabbis established Yud Abdin Misa, Tes Nezikin Abdi Misalai Abdi. That it needs to be 10 cubits deep in order to cause
Wonder
death.
how they discern how they get to that. Like, what?
I don't know. The impact.
What's
We're
the-
gonna have this is a machlekes. What's the reason for? See, when a person digs a pit, so he doesn't really have any ownership over the pit because it was in a public area, and the only thing he did was removed. You could always say, like, I didn't really put anything of mine here. It's not mine. I just took something out of the ground. I just took the manhole cover off and put it on the side. Didn't really, it's nothing here that's mine. So Rav is of the opinion that the only thing that is yours is the air that's in this pit. But you didn't have, people walking by didn't have access to that hot air or something that's now in this pit. So if someone falls in or something falls in and dies, it's because of the hot air that they died, because they weren't able to breathe or whatever. And that's what's, because that's what, and the distance, Shmuel says the impact and Rav says it's the air. Now, you're always going to be chayiv because each one is going to claim that it's not for the air, he would have survived. It's not for the impact, he would have survived. You know, it's
What about on Shabbos? Can you remove a lid off of an opening on Shabbos? Can you apply that to this case?
no, if it's supposed to come on and off, then it would be like opening a door. But we're talking about the way you have to guard it. If someone takes the lid off something, they always have to.
So is this B'Shus
protect
Rabim
it.
of bars only?
Bar is B'Shus Rabim.
What about a Makkah? That's my house. But on my roof.
That's also that's
That's a bar.
Bar B'Shus Yachid.
Right.
Yeah, we're gonna have later a discussion about this. If mafkir, if someone digs it in his own property and then he's mafkir's property.
I'm talking about the Makkah.
Yeah, that's an
Get up
obligation
there.
for people in your property that
That's my property.
I know, but you have an obligation to protect people in your property as well, that they
Isn't
shouldn't
that,
get hurt.
it's not a bar? No,
For
I
yourself.
understand, but it's not considered like a bar? I'm going backwards.
You're asking that if someone falls off a roof, should they be chayav because of bar? Because you didn't put up the fence. I'm not sure.
That's what I'm sure. I understand, but but sometimes there's more than
No,
one.
but that's not a monetary. That's just a ritual law. Right.
But you have a specific.
You were saying a bar, if you
Torah
went and done
issue
something
of
else.
market.
That's
Yeah,
right.
responsible
Doesn't
for
that
it.
supersede?
So if you did it in
No,
your.
it doesn't tell me how much a person pays like that.
Oh,
But that's
look at
not
that
Unless
language
it
of
would go
rabbi.
under the category of bar.
That's a bar, but that's a bar.
You're required to put a mic around.
So
Insurance
So
company
the thing
doesn't
is-
have it, ultimately, like any bar.
the thing
But it's
is,
in your
I
Rishus
think
Yachid.
I think it works like this. I think the bar b'shus harabim, the chiddush is a bar b'shus harabim for sure b'shus hayachid. I think
Okay,
that's
so
the
you hear that?
even b'shus harabim, even though you have no ownership of it, you're still chayav for a bar. So
Okay,
for
yeah,
sure,
that's
if
what
it's
I'm
something
saying,
that's
because we were
yours, you
talking
should for
about
sure be
it's only
chayav.
Rishus Rabim.
The insurance company's not paying.
Hmm?
You didn't put a fence and someone, the insurance company's not paying.
So the Gemara says here what we just said was that
I knew.
we're trying to figure out if bar has an offshoot of 9 tvachim, which is not the real category of bar. Gemara says so. Saif zabla misav zabla nuzak. In 1 second, both of them are aves. This one causes death, 10 tvachim, and this one causes damages, 9 tvachim. The Gemara says we'll have to go to something else to look for what's not going to be consistent with the av. It must be talking about where someone left something in the public property, like a rock or a knife or a backpack or something, and it caused damage. The Gemara says, "Hey chidami," that's going to be an offshoot of bar. What a real bar is when you dig a pit. What's an offshoot of bar is when you leave something that someone could stumble over.
But once again, why is it saying Rishus Rabim? Same thing, if you leave your knives lying around in your house, it's like a pool.
Hold on 1 second. You'll see in a second. Gemara says, "Hey chidami, what's the case? Idaf gerino, did he make it ownerless? Bein l'rav, bein l'shmuel hainu bar." Then that goes under the category of bar. Because both Rav and Shmuel say that if he doesn't own it, it's a bar. And if he didn't make it ownerless, Shmuel would say that's also a bar. Shmuel holds that any impact is a bar. Rav, it's the Gemara later on is going to say that it has to be that he tripped on the backpack and he landed on the backpack. Because if he tripped on the backpack and landed on the floor, then the floor is the cause. But here we're talking about, okay, so Shmuel holds that it's a bar. According to Shmuel, it's no problem anyway, because Shmuel holds any impact that you cause is the same thing. But Rav says that if you own it, then it doesn't go under the category of a bar, because a bar is something that you don't own. According to Rav, a bar, if you own it, that goes under the category of shar, hainu shar, and Maishna bar shkein tchilas asiyas al nazik menchesh mrasun nami tchilas asiyas al nazik menchesh mrasun. What's the logic of a bar that the person has to pay? Well, the fact that right when you started digging it already causes damage, right? And you have an obligation to protect no one should. You have to stand there and make sure no one falls in. That's your obligation. Why does it say memaincha? It's interesting, no? Chilas asiyasan lenezek umemaincha. It's your money. Taisa says lav dafka gabi bar. The lav memainahu in gabi yesh. I think it's just using the phrase that he used before, and so it's repeating it. But really, bar doesn't mean it's your money. Maybe the Torah makes it your money. Maybe that's what it means. The Torah makes it right. Maybe that's what it means. Ella told the bar kabar. It must mean told us of bar exactly like kabar. Papa told the mava. What was Rav Papa talking about? Must have been told us of mava. We're working our way through the Mishnah, looking for which one is not like the av. We're up to mava. It says mava. My neo. What is mava? So we have machlekes Rav and Shmuel. Ila Shmuel damar mava zu shein. Shmuel says mava is shein. It means eating. Okimna told the shein kashen. We already went through that already a page before. Ila Rav damar mava zu adam. According to Rav, mava is adam. Adam means man. When man causes damage. My avis might told us this pay. What type of av and tolda is there by a person causing damage? Av neir tolda yashin. Maybe you can say that the main category is when he's awake. A tolda is if he causes damage when he's asleep. How does he cause damage when he's asleep? He kicks something off the bed and it breaks.
So one is intentional and one is unintentional.
Both of them are unintentional. We're so far. We're talking about that, but it's still damage. But we have a Mishnah that says Adam mod lailam. A person is always obligated, bein er, bein yashin. Whether he's awake or asleep, he has to pay for those damages. Why? Because he should have, when gone to sleep, put something on his bed. Should have put it on the night table. Ella kiche v'niyai. We're talking about his spit or his phlegm. That would be a tolda of that could cause damage. That's a tolda of a person. It's an offshoot of a person causing damage. Echidami, what's the case? If it caused damage as it's flying, so that's his power. What does that mean? That's like the person himself. Like he threw a punch. He threw a spit. If it landed already, that would for sure be a bar according to Rav and Shmuel. Why? Because he made it ownerless. Doesn't want to keep it, right? So it's up for grabs, whoever wants. So that would be go under the category of bar. We already said that bar is exactly the same like the av. Ella told the mava kamava. It must be that mava is the same that told us. We're really in a bind over here. We can't figure out what did Rav Papa mean that the told us of Nezikin. Some of them are not like the others. Rav Papa told the eish. Rav Papa must have been speaking about fire, which is hever. This is our last chance. Told the eish my kneel. What is the tolda of fire? And now we talk about a rock, a knife, or a backpack, or a load that was put on a roof. They flew off the roof with the common wind, not with the hurricane wind. Common wind that flew off. And this is something that you should have been protected, just like fire. That fire spreads with the wind. The wind makes it go to the next property. So too, this stuff that you left outside on your balcony or whatever, and then now it flew off. So that's under the category of fire. Hechidami, what's the case? If while it's flying it causes damage, that's fire. Just like fire, it has another power that's mixed in and you're still obligated. It's wind. You can't claim that I didn't make the wind. It's tough luck. The wind comes along and you're chayav because you have to take the wind into account. So too, this as well. You own it and the wind takes it. You're obligated. Ella told the eish ke'eish. Rather told us of fire is going to be the fire. Kamma Papa told the regal. Must be talking about told us of regal. This regal ho kimna told the regal keregal. We already told me. We went through that a page ago that the told us of regal of trampling is exactly the same. No, here's we get the answer. The chatzi nezek tzreiras. We're talking about tzreiras. Pebbles that when the animals is walking on and it as it's walking, pebbles like shoot out.
The lawnmower shoots pebbles, hits your window.
Yeah. Yeah, this is more like the guard behind the tires on the trucks.
Yeah.
For the pebbles. A mud guard.
Explain to Shalom what a lawnmower is.
Those guys who come by your house and make noise.
Noisemaker.
So
what about like a tree that falls over? Like that's also part of
yeah, well, so what would that be? The person should have seen the tree and chopped it down before it fell. Like, why was he obligated? I don't know. I'm not sure. If a person has a tree that falls down on someone else's property, under which
It's highly unlikely that.
according to no, actually,
let's say it was a dead
I had a coconut tree that was growing on a slant, and I think I saw it falling, and it just like one day it just like like fell onto the swale. It was very light. Yeah, it fell down. It was very light. I lifted the whole thing up. I moved it like. It's like the wood is like soft wood. There's
But
nothing.
the Florida was, if you have a tree that's jutting, like on one side of the fence, your neighbor can trim your tree along the property line. Which is his protection. If the tree falls over, you're not responsible because otherwise they'd always be arguing. And so they picked one side. They said, you worry about your property. And that's what you want insurance, this, that, because.
So was the Gemara saying that by Tsaroros there's Nezek and Katsi Nezek?
So it goes like this. What we have is regel is really nezek shalim. Anytime trampling, there's always the full payment. Comes to tzreiras, when an animal walks on gravel and pebbles shoot out, if there was fruits under him, that would be regular regel. But what shoots out from this regular regel, from the trampling, then it hits something else. It hits like a glass vase that's on the side or something because he stepped on it and it hits something over there. So then he only has to pay half the price. The hilchas gemira it's halach l'meishim misinai that it's only half the price. But my Carly told it the regel. So then why do you say it's regel? Why are you saying it's regel? Maybe it's just Karen. It says no, because l'shalim min aliyah. He has to pay from the. You see, what happens is like this. When it comes to Karen, and an ox scores another ox, intention. So he has to pay, if it's the first 2 times, he has to pay half the price, half the value of the damage. Where does that money come from? You take the goring ox and you sell it, or the person keeps it. In other words, from the damager itself, it's called migufay. From the damager itself is the payment for the to the victim. But that's not by regel. By regel and other ones, you have to pay. So what would happen is like this: if the ox that gored is not even worth half the price of the damage, then the person doesn't end up getting his whole payment. He doesn't get his whole half payment because you only take from. So here we're saying that by tzreiras, you have to pay the whole payment, even if the animal wasn't worth the half price. You have to pay min aliyah. You have to pay not from the body of the animal. You have to pay from the best of the stuff that you have.
Do they kill the animal?
If it killed a man, not if it killed another animal. Yeah. So v'hami bayi Rava. But 1 second, Rava had a question. The bayi Rava chatzin nezek tzreiras miguf mishalim min aliyah mishalim. Rabbi had this question. Rabbi wasn't sure if you pay from the animal itself that caused the damage, or if you have to pay from the best of what he has. Says, well, that's not a problem because L'Rava mi bailei, L'Rav Papa pshitale. Rava had a question, but Rav Papa knew the answer. Rava was a teacher of Rav Papa. L'Rava the mi bailei, Amaika told the regal. According to Rava that had the question, why is it called the Tolda of Regal? We are calling it Tolda Regal because you pay min aliyah. Why does Rava say? Well, he says L'Paicha b'Shus Harabim because Sheres is pater in Rishus Harabim. Trampling is pater in Rishus Harabim, is exempt. So too, Tzreis is also exempt in Rosh Hashanah. Okay, let's leave it over here. Yeah. Now let's talk about tonight.
What about tonight?
What time is the Siyam?
Right after Mariv?
Okay, Hillel's doing the Siyam. 6:30. Is it?
No, Hillel!
Could
I would encourage.
women and
Yeah, women are invited.